think it's 1:20 already. Thanks everyone for being here, and please, so happy to be your moderator today. And I'm going to introduce our speakers today, if you allow me. So we'll start with Mr. Hamad Chowdhury. I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong or correct. I'm sorry. He is the Director of Visual Design and Construction at EllisDon in Western Canada. He has worked in a wide range of capacities, including architecture technologist, project coordinator, building information modeling coordinator, and visual design and construction manager. Working with BIM and digital frameworks on projects, Hamad's role is to implement VDC tools to provide the necessary balance between technology, innovation, and economical efficiency, and to offer appropriate and novel solution to construction problem. And if you don't mind, Hamad, would you like to introduce the rest of your panel?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Samia.
You're welcome.
So we're lucky to have some amazing panelists with us today. The first individual I want to introduce is Anne-Louise, and then followed by Ahmed Hanafi, and then Sarah Nicholson. So I'm going to just turn it over to you first, Anne-Louise. Why don't you introduce yourself, Longview Systems, and kind of how you got where you are.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for the introduction, and thank you for including me today. Longview Systems, an IT consultant company, been around for 21 years. I'm based out of Calgary with locations across North America. I've been with the organization for 10 years, first as a PM and then as a program manager, and worked as PMO director and now client experience director, with still the PMO reporting under me in terms of providing governance and continuous improvement for that team. Prior to my experience with Longview as an independent PM, worked in business, got to do a lot of supply chain stuff, which was fun, got to travel the world a bit. So broad experience, and just passionate about driving continuous improvement and keeping people happy in their roles.
Fantastic. Yeah, the traveling part maybe has been a little bit missed lately.
Yeah, it's different.
Absolutely. Now over to you, Ahmed from mCloud, if you can introduce yourself and how you got where you are.
Thank you very much for having me today. My name is Ahmed Hanafi, working with mCloud. I'm engineering team lead. My background is engineering, a Bachelor of Engineering. I'm electrical engineer mainly, but also involved in automation and instrumentation. We are leading a project for industry. So yeah, I'm working with mCloud now. Like before was Autopro automation consultant, and 3 years now working with mCloud technologies, doing interesting project for buildings, for asset care, for industry, and yeah, so it's good and fun work.
Awesome. No, it sounds great. And last but not least, Sarah Nicholson. Can you please introduce yourself and give us a little bit about your story as well?
Sure, absolutely. Well, hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sarah Nicholson. I am located in Dallas, Texas. Have been working for mCloud for 5 years, close to 5 years now. Initially started in HR in US and working on our global acquisitions, and was recently took the position over as Director of Customer Experience. And as Anne said, I'm also a big believer in continuous improvement and happy to be here today to share a little bit about some of the project management stuff that we do.
All right, amazing. So let's get into it. Thanks everyone for joining in on this session. I know you had 3 or 2 other options to choose from and you chose us. So we're going to make it worth your while here. To kick things off, because there's such a broad group of folks tuning in, and maybe myself and the rest of the panel may be a little bit too deep into technology and IoT, I'm going to ask our panel to just describe what is the IoT and what does it entail? What is the current ecosystem like in the industry? And where are we right now from your perspective in terms of that technology and adaptation and so on and so forth. So maybe first we can start off with you, Ahmed, your opinion on that.
Yeah, so IoT is very interesting technology now and progressing very quick. So as for most of us may know that IoT is Internet of Things, sometimes also industrial folks, they like to use the terminology of IIoT, which is Industrial Internet of Things as well. The systems connected to, like, usually like for IoT, it's the main purpose is to connect the physical world that we have to internet. So IoT works successfully by attaching the real world interface to internet. And we are speaking that for real world, that we speak about like sensors that provide data, and also the actuators that responses back with action to the surroundings. So in reality, IoT system provide the technology and means to an instrument, and that quantify and actuate our physical world. However, connecting sensors add physical world data and in sense awareness to the internet. So in addition to that, we have to be careful because we need to consider like cyber security when we do that. So to avoid any threatening or any breaching to the data. So in effect, IoT augments the internet with all its features and capabilities by adding to the real world dimension. And with incorporation of IoT, the internet becomes a web for people, information, services. So with IoT, we are getting all the benefit of connecting to the internet, and we are getting to the next level. Like for AI, artificial intelligence, we can also do cloud computing, and we can do modeling, we can do analytics, which can also reflect better to our life for lots of application we are seeing these days. And I'd like to mention about Kevin Ashton, who is considered the father of Internet of Things, that pointed out in 20th centuries, computer were brains without senses. They only knew what we told them. But in the 21st century, because of Internet of Things, computers can sense things for themselves, which opening now new gates for, yeah, as I said, like for artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and digital twin, and that will make our life better.
Thank you for that. That was a good comprehensive overview. And I guess the key thing right now that's taken out is that it's just the beginning, it seems like, from what you're saying, right? So it's really opening up doors. And Luis, anything you want to add in there as well?
Yeah, I think we are right at the beginning, right? I don't think we can even imagine what we're going to be seeing from an IoT perspective and AI. Like, I think even 2 years from now, it's going to be different, never mind 5, 10. And so I think that's the excitement and the challenge, right? Like how I think it's going to drive change at a really accelerated pace. And how do we stay nimble? How do we continue to evolve and keep up with that as individuals, as organizations, and try and keep taking advantage of that evolution? So I think it's going to be an exciting time, but we're all going to have to get used to a different pace of change, which just keeps on getting faster and faster.
Yeah, if anything, for the last couple of years almost now, that's what we've been forced to get used to, is that fast pace of change, right?
Yeah.
You're making me think of kind of the key that has come up today throughout the symposium and a few presentations is that, technology is only one piece of the puzzle. You need people, processes, and technology kind of coming together. So I guess what I want to ask you here is, how much of the hurdles are we facing right now are actually technology based, or how many of them rather are actually not imposed by technology, but more so by the people and processes?
Yeah, and I can start with that, Hamid. I think it's definitely, from my perspective, the people and the processes, right? Sometimes I don't know about anybody else, but when you're navigating change, the technology piece almost seems easy. Right? We can map that out, we can put it on a diagram and see how it's going to work. Getting people to the table to understand and describe how they want to use technology, what it is that they need it to do, what's going to be different for them when the technology is deployed. That's the harder part, and that's what takes time, right? And I think we have to actively work against this urge to just jump to doing, right? Like let's get to implementation, let's start moving forward, and especially as project managers have the discipline to say, okay, are we clear on what it is we're trying to achieve? Are we clear? Do we have all the stakeholders identified and engaged? Have we done that, old school requirement solicitation, but you can do it in agile different ways. But have we done that discovery? Have we really got our stakeholders aligned? Have we uncovered resistors? Can they imagine how it's going to feel when they work together? I think that is that discipline to do that front end work. And I don't see that consistently. And it's tough. It's tough to be that person to try and hold back and make sure we know where we're headed at least, and that everybody's on the bus before we start moving.
That's a good point. And I guess the thing that, I guess, to summarize that's sticking out is, ironically enough, people seem to be the problem, right? So Sarah, I mean, I'd love to get your insight on that as well, especially because of your background with the HR thing, and then kind of jumping to customer experience in your current role. You've probably got a breadth of kind of knowledge to drop here.
Sure, yeah. So I might look at it from a different perspective, but yeah, I call it the PPT framework, and it's definitely a balancing act. The people do the work, and processes make the work more efficient, and then technology provides the tools for us to be able to implement it. So one hurdle I think that has always kind of been challenging is the compatibility issues of systems. If you've got a financial system, a CRM system, let's say your ticketing system for customer support, and making sure that all of those are integrated, to be able to use. While automation, I think technology is probably easy. It's the easiest route for all workflows, but can also, pose some of those challenges if you're not careful in vetting those applications out before, I guess signing an agreement to use them, to make sure, that they're all available. But to me, out of all three of them, I think people are one of the most important aspects of it all, because you have to have people to do the work. So
absolutely. And I guess one key thing too, which I keep experiencing, and I'm sure you do as well, is the implementation of technology sometimes gives an idea that we're going to be reducing people and relying more on that technology. But in my short experience so far, what I found is we actually need more champions, if you want to call it that, of the new technology to help the existing kind of business ecosystem. So that was very interesting to hear. And I guess before we move on, Ahmed, do you have anything else to add from an engineering standpoint about the people, process, technology, and your take on that?
Yeah, as you also mentioned before, Hamad, I think because of the dynamic changes of IoT, I think also training is very important, and people, they get like more knowledge because IoT is something new, and till now there is no final standard to it. ISA is working on putting together a standard, but it's not like in the final revision yet. So it's always required learning to be always on top of things, and getting like any new information, anything new to be updated, because it's really dynamic and progresses very quick. And if you mess like for a while or get like some new data released, you need to be always up to date so you can be successful in any project and meet the client expectation.
That's also a good point there too. So I like that breadth of experience that we have there, and the answers bringing different perspectives. It kind of makes me think a lot more, but I'm going to stay on track here, folks. And I'm going to ask you a little bit of a different question here. And maybe after I'm done, we'll start off with you, Anne Louise. But given that Internet of Things projects typically impact a broad spectrum of stakeholders, so potentially from your CEO to frontline staff, and then the involvement of divergent asset classes, so ranging from remote field technology to cloud analytics, what does a PM or project manager need to bring to the table as a skill set in order to succeed today?
Yeah, and it's I mean, that's a long question, but really it talks to the complexity of our world, right? Like our worlds are incredibly interconnected, and we're seeing technology more and more connect people in crazy ways that we can't even imagine a short time ago. And so now when you head into a project to lead that initiative, especially IoT, where it's by definition connecting so many different aspects of not just hardware or technology, but different people, right? I think as a PM, you really need to bring forward I mean, we all know that PMing is a hugely people management driven role, but that's even more important now. And I think understanding some key concepts of how do people navigate change, how to, as Ahmed said, how do we make sure that they're trained and ready to receive the technology or the new applications or whatever, right? The PM needs to understand what does great organizational change management look like, or what does understand how QA works, and even understand when to bring in your business systems analysts. I think these understanding and being able to navigate and know when to bring those other skills to the table to augment your own is really important, and understanding how those teams need to work together, what sequencing of events needs to happen so that the OCM is really successful, because it needs to start super early, and making sure sponsorship's aligned. So I think for me, I'm seeing the PM needing to understand all aspects at a much broader level, and understanding when to bring in those specialists to make sure that everything gets done to the right level, which may be different for different projects.
That's a very good point. So, I mean, I guess just generalizing a little bit to digest for myself is like at the PM level, obviously there's going to be a lot more of a breadth of the project that you're looking at, but then having that understanding of like, okay, this is now a technical expertise where I do need to bring in some help or some specialized individuals to help move it forward. And again, like you said, one size does not fit all, right? So there'll be different case by case, project by project, but as a general framework, I think that makes a lot of sense. And you know what, Ahmed, I'd love your opinion too, because you're more on the engineering side of that things. And so what does that project manager kind of skill set look like to you now?
Yeah, I think one of the important things that the project manager should be like bringing on the table is good planning, because some of the IoT projects are they have like a quick start, and they were required to be like the time frame for them is short. And one of the key aspects of that is picking the right resources related to the project, and also being agile for the project management, because the project is really dynamic. Changes could happen like very quick. So I think being agile for the project management mindset will be a good thing, and achieve success to the project. And also with that, there should be like good communication skills, either between the team or the project stakeholders, to keep the project on track without any deviation during the project, and also giving attention to the milestones. So if there is sometimes some client, they give a date because they will be like available to have their product line down to test the system or check it. it's better to meet that expectation and not miss it. And that will save lots of money on the client side and make the project successful.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I guess that's a good segue over to you, Sarah. I mean, the client experience side, and I guess from your perspective now, is there anything you want to add to what Anne-Louise or Ahmed said about what project managers kind of, need to bring to the table nowadays to succeed for, I guess, on your side for our clients?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they both mentioned, key points there, but yeah, I definitely believe that they must have a broad toolbox of skills, from project planning, organizing and managing the resources to complete, the project on time, in budget, and on scope, with specific, requirements and, standards that are set forth in, an agreement. And it's also very important to manage, stakeholders, not only internally, but externally on the customer side. For instance, we do at mCloud, we do a lot of installations of our IoT hardware and software, and it's important that we provide a timeline for the customers to know what will be happening throughout that entire project life cycle, so that they understand where we're at, because it's also not about managing the project internally, but it's also managing the customer's expectations and what they are going to receive and when they will receive it. Also from kind of segue back to the previous question on the people, process, and technology, with people being trained in technology, that is also very important on the customer support side. When our project managers finish a project, they must be communicating with the support team, making sure that the user interface, the dashboards, everything is up and working, and that, there's clear understanding of how the systems operate. So there's a lot of moving parts. It's fun.
It is. It is.
A broad skill set for sure.
I guess what this is making me think of is just a little bit of a joke, but the good old days of just getting a job and a salary for the rest of your life, and that's it. You can go 9 to 5, check out, come home. Those days are gone. This is like dynamic, just like the industry, and kind of as a project manager, anyone really in this industry, you've got to stay up to date and not necessarily be a subject matter expert, right? Like as Anne-Louise was saying, but be able to know when to pull in the right people. And then it goes full circle. So, I mean, the client side of things, that really, I think, was a key part too, is after the project's done, doesn't necessarily mean the relationship's done. What do we need to do to enhance the customer's ability to, get the product that they got, but also actually use it in ways that maybe their business would benefit. And some of that does come from the handover, but some of that then is on the customer at the end of the day as well, right? So very fascinating. It's making me think of a few things right now, and I'm going to kind of shift over, and I wonder, maybe we'll start off with you here, Ahmed, and then we'll jump over to you, Anne-Louise. But how does IoT now impact project management in a different way than maybe people understand? So we've talked about some of the technical challenges, we've talked about what skill sets you need, but maybe what are some opportunities? And so I'm on the construction side of things. For me, what I can really think of is maybe in the future, in a hyper idealistic world, insurance for construction may go down because of having these smart sensors. We're going to be able to actually hone in on the risks. So to give you an example, right now, a lot of what's going on in the construction industry when it comes to IoT during the construction process, not in operations, but during that build, is kind of, I don't want to call them reactive sensors, but in a way it is, right? So it's kind of putting water sensors on the floor. So if a leak happens, then that device will notify you, compared to maybe operationally where we see those flow sensors going on pipes and water mains with the smart valves, and that'll turn things off. So in a hyper idealistic world for construction, we have the more advanced sensors that will turn off water, power, whatever it is, and actually be able to reduce that risk. And ultimately then the premium for insurance is going down. Long-winded story, but that's kind of from my side what I see in construction. So, Ahmed, what do you see from your side as one of these great benefits that could happen? Oh, you're on mute there.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a very great point. Thanks, Hamad, for initiating that. So actually, in my opinion, for IoT project and impact to project management, the more information we know, the less risk we have. And when we translate that to less risk, that will mean the insurance cost will go down. And I have seen lots of projects that was initiated because of the insurance. So even to get the insurance rate for, especially for plants that you are looking for, you have to follow some kind of requirement, and that will require to install like sensor, as you said, like for water, for example, to avoid any water damage or any problem like what we have in our home. Also on the fire and security, same thing. So usually the insurance, they require a special monitoring for even like I noticed now they have like advanced system, even like some plants, they have like, some cable underground. And in the past, lots of fire happened because of this, and that was not monitored. Now we started to monitor all of that and get integrated network for fire and security for the plant. And having that monitored and connected to the internet, that also can give a very quick alarm to the responsible crew. So they will get announced with any issue or something which is not going right. And also with that said, there are also some actuators or actions. And I have seen also some projects, they have been saved because they installed the fire system earlier, even before finishing the construction. And what happened? The actuators, they open the fire extinguisher and they save the tank, save the plant. So all of that, of course, will save lots of money on the client side, decrease the risk, and get the insurance cost down.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's very insightful. And it's a great example too of that underground kind of network or and the difference there and not being able to see that and maybe what that impact would bring on a larger scale for those plants. And Louise, what about on your side? What are you thinking there?
I'm trying to imagine how access to more data, again, risk reduction, right? Like how can we use more data to do predictive analysis on our projects to get easier forecasting? And I think that's probably here today. I just haven't explored it in depth yet, but also what can AI and more connectivity tell us about how our teams are working, right? We've all been stuck in Zoom land for almost 2 years. What data could we be getting back from our collaboration tools that tell us how we're working and suggest better ways to work? If you've got a team of 10 people, who's talking to who? Who isn't talking to anybody? Who's meeting their deadlines? And is there any correlation to collaboration, right? Like this, I think trying to use this to optimize how we work, because I don't think this is going away, right? Like, I think, yeah, how can we use this data that we're going to get more and more of? How can we use that to make our jobs even more effective, more targeted, to manage our teams to the delivery, right? And make it easier for us to collaborate and deliver together.
No, it's really good. It's making my brain spin a little bit. Two things that are coming up. One is, I guess the story behind the data as well, and being able to tell that, right? So one of the things that I've been seeing is, we can collect all of this data, but then what's the story we're trying to tell and kind of get the end game, out of that. So it's like just access to data, for example, on its own isn't going to do anything, but then like these story pieces, adding the AI on top of it, and like you're getting at maybe the human aspect of collaboration and all of that, how is that going to get impacted? The second thing that you're making me think of here is we always talk about reducing these data silos, siloed ways of working, and magically, if say we had all of our data dropped into one location for all stakeholders, that's not going to necessarily change anything, right? But if we create it in a way that there is that story, there is that notification dashboards, whatever it is for each of those use cases, all of a sudden now that is becoming a clear picture for everyone involved, right? So
absolutely. Yeah, and I think that to just pull on that thread a bit, that storytelling, right? The minute that you can put two people's data sets together and they see the advantage, because before they couldn't visualize that, right? And you put them together and suddenly they're like, oh, I had no idea. And so the people connections then come on board and they start talking to each other about how they're using the data and what does that mean for them. And that energy, that excitement, that's what's going to drive more stories and more use cases and just keep it spinning. And that you got to do so much of your project just to get to that point. But then once you can get your stakeholders, like Ahmed said, in an agile environment, if you can start delivering and they can start visualizing, then it becomes easy and easier to get more people on board in that world.
That's awesome. And then, I've got to ask you, Sarah, as well. I mean, is there anything that you can think of as well from your side of it, like the impact potentially that this could have on the industry from a people standpoint? I mean, I just want to go back to construction. This is making me think there's these sensors out there now that we can put on the neck and hard hats of workers, and it will give us insights as to, hey, is their posture bad? How likely are they to pull a muscle? Stuff like that, right? So, I mean, I know that doesn't do anything for you there, Sarah, but just to preface, like, it doesn't matter what you think. It could be from HR, it could be from the client side, anything, right? The impacts are a lot bigger than maybe just a device.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I guess if we want to talk a little bit just about even on the data side, that's what we do. Obviously, we get data back from the connected devices and we analyze it and we bring it to clients, for key performance indicators, how their hardware is working. Is it efficient? Their HVAC, their control systems, energy savings. And we analyze that, and we do also have an application, AssetCare Mobile, that has 3 different software. It's called Collaborate, Digitize, and Visualize, that can be used for all of our asset classes that we have in buildings, industry. And it's nice to be able to send someone out remote to the field to be able to do things hands-free. They don't have to worry about having documents, holding documents, and then also doing their job at the same time. It's right there at a viewpoint on their connected worker hat. So yeah, no, I mean, I think that there's a lot of savings in there as far as time is probably the biggest that I would think, and then also just incorporate the safety of your workers on site. Like I said, being hands-free is a big thing when you're climbing up a wind turbine.
Yeah, no kidding. That's very insightful too, in the sense that the application or the use, right, again, is coming back to the people, process, technology. The bigger benefit, obviously, we're looking at the triple constraint triangle for project management, whatever, but comes down to the people, right? And I think the biggest fear I always get, from events like this and talking to people is, I don't want to lose my job. But that's not kind of what technology is doing. If anything, from the sounds of this, enabling people to be safer at what they're doing, bring better decisions necessarily earlier, and then being able to use that information for the next project or whatever it is, right? So I really like that piece how you tied it in the end, is like, at the end of the day, if you're a worker, this is making your life safer potentially by giving you tools that would have been distracting you potentially before, right? And I think, this is kind of natural segue, but what are some of our technical or other challenges that are commonplace in the IoT projects and initiatives, right? So I know we've talked about with Anne and kind of front loading and maybe getting some of that set up. I know Ahmed talked about a lot of the milestones and how PMs can kind of do stuff like that. But if we want to step back more of an industry rather than specifically project approach, it's what are some limitations? Is it government regulations? Is it more so just we're a little bit, earlier on as an overall industry, not these hyper specific clients, but like overall people are now starting to trust the data? Is it cybersecurity? What could be some of these kind of challenges right now? And maybe we'll start off with you, Ahmed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good question. So one of the things that came up to my mind, and I noticed also in the past, when we apply IoT at the client plant or facilities, sometimes they have old infrastructure and they have like old platform, and they would like to integrate the IoT new solution with their existing platform or systems. And sometimes we take time to describe to them that it's better to upgrade their system first before doing this integration, because with having like old system, it's hard to get communication modules, it's hard to get like a good stable networking and communication on old copper network. It's better to go with fiber to have like some better connectivity and having better performance, because also you can create problems instead of the IoT is solving problems. You can get into also some issues with that. The other thing, some clients, because also we are speaking about getting the benefit of the internet and clouding and using all of these nice data learning and modeling. Some of the clients still, they have like some in-house like restrictions with their standards that they are not, they don't approve to connect their system to internet. And either we have some ways to go around that. Like sometimes they like to use their internal servers. We install lots of software at their facilities, but also that's costing them more money because of the licensing and also the spacing and putting all of that on their facilities. And some of them, we compromise with them with having like some firewalls and applying some rules of cybersecurity. They got they got the message and they start to be flexible about that. But I see all of that is changing by the time when the cybersecurity getting more in place and we have like more restrictions and the client trusting the firewalls and the protection that we can do to their network to stop any threatening happening. But yeah, these are some of the main issues we have and we find as challenges these days.
Thank you for that. Anything that you'd like to add to that, Anne, Luis?
No, I think Ahmed's bang on, right? Like that, the biggest challenge is the existing infrastructure and what state it's in, and understanding that. I know when we go to clients and we say, okay, can we have your documentation? And they're like, might not be current, right? And so you start from, you kind of feel like you're bumping around in the dark a little bit. And it's hard, right? Like they want to get onto the new exciting stuff and you're telling them they've got an infrastructure upgrade ahead of them. It's not what they're excited about, and trying to get them to understand, well, we can try it this way, but we could be into hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of troubleshooting. We might never even get there. Like it's those aren't easy conversations. So, but as I do believe we're headed in the right direction, right? More people are, I think COVID forced a lot of people to address some of their technical debt that they hadn't had to before. Right? And they just didn't have a choice. Yeah. Right? It was like, okay, well, you're not going to be able to survive for the next 6 months without addressing this stuff. So I think that's accelerated a lot of IT budgets. So there's a bit of a silver lining in it. But absolutely, that's one of the biggest complexities for these kinds of projects.
I love it. I guess like we can kind of move on. We've got a bunch of questions coming in too. But before we move on, I guess, Sarah, we hit some good points there. I just want to give you the opportunity in case there's anything you want to bring up as well.
No, just probably the only other item just to add on to what Ahmed said was the cybersecurity and how important it really is, and making sure that it's baked into the project scoping. and your analysis of the environment, that it's all taken care of. So.
Well, hopefully if there's any policymakers or R&D kind of folks on the line, I think there's a huge benefit if we can look at implementing some sort of policy to spur, research development and tax breaks, whatever you want to cut it, in existing infrastructure upgrades to these smart technologies, from what I've heard so far. Of course, it's not my professional opinion, it's just a piece of advice there that we could look at, right?
Sure.
Okay, so we've got a few questions here. I'm just going to read them off, and then, Anne-Louise, Ahmed, and Sarah, please jump in. I will be a moderator like I'm supposed to if I have to, but I just like the flow that we have going on here. So first question from Ted Blackman: what primary types of IoT devices and business enhanced project management disciplines / business use cases?
I can answer this question. So this question has like two aspects of it. So the primary types that we are using usually for IoT, like mainly we're using smart sensors. So smart devices, smart sensors that they have the connectivity option for networking, and we can like monitor it and get information from it. If the client doesn't have that, we usually also do things like to make that happen. So we have also communication modules that we can install to their systems. And also one important part of the network architecture or the system architecture is the edge device. So it's usually connecting the information to the cloud. Plus also some of the networking switches, and usually also we use OPC connectivity to get multiple systems to be integrated and connecting and talking together. For project management and also for on the client side, there are like some new tools now that they are smart, and they also make the process easier, quicker. So for example, in the past, we used to do lots of documentation in our projects, but now there are like some smart softwares and programs that we just feed the main information, and they connect to libraries online. And most of the manufacturers now, they have that. So like Rockwell or Honeywell or whatever. And so I will give example from the client, like usually with, if there is a plant that they will require wiring drawings or module drawings or loop drawings for their plant. If we feed the system with the main information and mention what are the systems that we are using, it will be able to create and generate lots of drawing that we used to do manually in the past, which is getting the project cost to maybe 20% of the actual cost that we used to have it before. And also I'll mention a good example that maybe most of the folks will be familiar with. If some companies applying SAP in their plant, we usually give all the maintenance and spares and store information. And I've seen lots of good things coming from that. Like if the spare or the store for the spare parts is getting low, the system, when you reach like 10% of your store, is set up to start doing material requisition and get RFQ, send it to the vendor. Once it gets in a certain template, putting the price and the delivery time, and the system compare it with the previous, like the database that they have. If it's still within the same margin of pricing that didn't change over like 10%, it even create the PO automatically to the vendor and track it until it reach your store. So imagine how much time and effort was saved and used, and mistakes also that could be happen Like now, once the store has less quantity of equipment, you will release it and you get the equipment and track it until it reaches the store. So when the maintenance guy want to go and change a module or anything, he will find it without, before that they got surprised that some items out of stock, or so that's not happening anymore with big plants.
Anything you folks want to add in there, Anne, Louise, or Sarah?
No, I just think the opportunity for that kind of like workflow management is huge, right? Like anything that we can actually map out and potentially write rules around, that's huge for just moving things along faster without you having to manually take things from one step to the next. That's huge from a PM, just being able to check on where the workflows are and how things are moving.
That's great. Okay, next question I'm going to bring up here. This one is an interesting one. Is the keyboard an IoT device that could be used?
I
Wheels
think
are spinning.
if it is smart, then yes. If it's not smart, then no.
Ted, I'm not sure if you were adding a little bit of a joke in there, or if that's a serious one, but I guess that's our professional opinion there. Not at all. All right, appreciate it. And now the next one is definitely a little bit further than what I can kind of delve into, but maybe both of or all three of the panelists could jump into this just to add context. But Ted was talking about when he used to work in Edmonton, they used to use RFID tracking to look at materials, equipment, workers on the job site. They could easily tell if somebody was missing on a muster call within 1 minute, locate the last known, location on site. But there was some issues with personal privacy that had to be addressed on the project. So is there any regulatory bodies advancing how to consider this personal privacy aspect with people tracking devices on job sites?
I'm not aware of any, but I'm not close to it at all.
Fair enough, yeah. And then I guess, Sarah or Ahmed, or do you have any insights on that as well?
I have to refer to our IT department.
Yeah.
On that.
I would think if you're on the job site, right? Like as long as those devices are only active on the job site, like you're at work, I don't know. But I could see some people having concerns, right? Feeling like Big Brother is watching all the time.
Exactly. No, absolutely. And it's actually a funny story. The other week we went on one of our sites, construction sites, to put an iPad in what's known as the man and material hoist. So it moves people and equipment up and down. That iPad lets you use your phone to ping the device to be like, I'm on this floor, come pick me up. I want to go to the 25th floor. And so we were actually hearing that from a lot of people, like, hey, I don't want to use this because it could be tracking me personally in whatever way, shape, or form. So it is interesting. I think that does need to be addressed. And I just want to mention that EllisDon, mCloud, and Longview Systems are members of Alberta IoT. So Ted and anybody on the call, if you have any more questions or you want to get connected with that group of folks, Alberta IoT is a great resource for that. Okay, folks, I mean, we're getting to the top of the hour. If there's any other questions that want to come in, by all means, please let us know. Otherwise, I think this has been a great conversation. I personally could keep all three of you for another hour and keep picking your brains, but that's not what we're scheduled for. So thank you, Anne Louise, thank you, Ahmed, and thank you, Sarah, very much for your time, your knowledge, and your insights. For me, this is one I'm not going to forget. And over to you, Samia.
I just wanted to thank you again. Please accept our great thanks for you, including all the guests today. Thanks, Anne, and Ahmed and Sarah. Really enjoyed personally your discussion and conversation. And you nailed it when you started actually talking about the skills needed, what are the technical challenges, and even you talked about the safety and privacy and how it's really important for the safety of employees. I'm sure that we still have many areas that we need to discuss, but really an interesting discussion. all the time we're talking about VDC and BIM. And when we just talk about BIM, we talk about 3D model, but it's not only the design stage, it's not only the construction. I think it's the whole life cycle, but how we can implement it correctly and accurately. I think this is the future. And I teach actually at SAIT, and I'm looking forward what kind of research, and maybe this is my question for you, what kind of research do our students need as a CBM students to prepare for this kind of new trend? This definitely very important. I just, yeah, it's really, so I'm seeing some students, actually our alumni are joining us today, which is amazing to see. But other than this, I just wanted again to thank you all and ask if any of the audience have any questions, please share, and we might actually share it later to our guests today. Other than this, yeah, I think I need to close. And thanks for being a mediator too. You made my life easier, so I didn't answer. So thanks so much. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure.
Yes. Yeah, so yeah, thank you so much. And I think I will ask the audience, so you can check the agenda for our next session. We'll have a break time for 10 minutes. And thanks everyone for being here today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're
Okay.
very welcome. Have a wonderful day.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye.
Bye.